Hello and welcome to the CarClinic, a Podaholiks podcast with Glenn Power from Sundance Tires and myself, James Piecowye. For the next hour, we're going to be talking about cars and car repair, and special guest Andrew Gregory joins us from Ford. He's the brand manager for Mustang, and we're going to be talking about the brand new Mustang GT Premium. You're going to love it. It's a great conversation. Let's get right to it. This is the CarClinic.
Let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
Yeah.
CarClinic, Glenn Power, Sundance Tire, and what we do is what's on the tin. Talk cars.
Try our best.
And you know what it is, and people have been actually talking to me about this. Podaholiks is what you're listening to. It's Podaholiks podcast, and this is our 14th episode of this show.
Yeah.
And we've kind of morphed it into, not only are we talking about car repair, but we're also talking about
Hot water tanks,
washing machines. We've been talking about that too, and just new cars. In fact, the second part of this show today, and it'll also be a standalone. Typically, 3 guys in a car is the working title.
Yeah.
It's only 2 guys in the car today.
Yeah.
But we're gonna have a walk around with the Ford Motor Company, and we're gonna go check out the new Mustang.
Yeah.
And
not this bright pink one.
No. But the lady who owns the bright pink one was just having a chat with me, and she's got an issue with that. We'll talk about that in a second. But no, we're gonna drive around in a 2018.
Nice.
I thought it was 2019, but 2018 Mustang. I think it's the V8 version.
18 was the last refresh, wasn't it? Yeah.
So we're gonna walk around in this thing, and then you and I are gonna go for a drive and just have a chat and see. I'm curious to see if you fit into it nicely. So,
I do fit in Mustangs.
Okay,
Americans are big people.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Americans are big
yeah.
people, so I fit in Mustangs.
You might be too small for the seat then, because, as you said, big people.
Yeah, just rolling around in the seat, bolster to bolster every time we go around the corner.
But yeah, we're literally going to go for a drive. We're going to review the car. It's kind of a kicking of the hubcap review. Yeah. So the Ford guys are going to walk us around it and tell us why it's so awesome. Then we're going to go for a drive and chat.
Yeah.
And it's typically yourself, Andrew Thomas, the tech guy, and James going for this. Andrew's bailed on us today, so it's just you and me.
But he's scared of the power.
I think that's what it was. He realized we were going to put him in the back seat.
He's going to be good about this. He loves his V8s.
I know. So he's totally going to be gutted. So, and it's funny because it clearly has the wonderful sound, and you can actually change the sound of the exhaust, because they said, so do you want us to bring it up, or should we just go down into the garage? Well, of course they want
it. We want it underneath. We want it surrounded by concrete so we can hear it.
So it's going to be awesome. But as always, a lot of fun to talk about cars. And that's, again, we're talking about repairing vehicles. We're talking about new vehicles. We're talking about used vehicles. Yeah. Colin said that you've been dealing with his Pajeros.
Colin is the Pajero Prince.
Like he's
like the man.
He started to love him. He's going on and on about it today.
I mean, we've mentioned it. You know, it's not something you can do very easily here. Like tinker around with cars, buy and sell cars, just because the nature of how we live. A lot of people live in apartment blocks. You haven't got a designated area to work on a car and keep the spares lying around, and it's difficult to get rid of the waste oil and waste parts and things like that. So, a lot of people have it in them. Colin's managed to get a happy medium where he can buy these cars, and through us at Sundance, we make sure they're fit for him to sell on to somebody, because invariably he sells them to people he knows. Yeah. So he's got that side of being a used car salesman. He's got to nail down selling to someone you don't know in a different country. Yeah. He's probably, I don't know, he'll tell you the numbers, but he must be in double figures now for the amount he's bought and sold. Well, and not always at a profit.
No,
just an enjoyable experience for him.
He was talking that he's been doing Pajeros recently, and he scored really big on one and not so big on the other.
He's been nailed on the last one. We had it in yesterday to check it. It looks like it's been down a road that wasn't wide enough.
Oh,
it's just like totaled.
Yeah,
all cosmetic. There's nothing structural. Mechanically, it's pretty sound. So, see how that goes.
Yeah. But always fun,
it's just a hobby.
Yeah. Which is, and I think cars are that universal thing, aren't they?
Yeah.
Because we all love to drive them, or vans, or trucks, but we love to drive them. We love to have fun, and it's that universal conversation. We're sitting in the urban grounds, actually, right beside the Tesla dealership. We were commenting on what their parking bills must be.
Yeah, definitely.
They've got all these Teslas parked there. We're
They're
sitting
in the shade, though.
They are in the shade
mostly.
Yeah. But it's got to be quite the parking bill.
I just, what is it, 6 dirhams or 8 dirhams or something for 2 hours?
Yeah, so even if they got a deal, it's going to be killing them. But we're sitting around Fords, and you were remarking on this bright pink wrapped Ford Mustang, and the woman who drives it, lovely lady, came down in a fire engine red dress with matching shoes.
Love it.
And I said, oh, I see you got it parked out front. She says, oh yeah, someone scratched me. Oh. And it's a wrap. So it's bright pink, but it's a wrap. Yeah. And she's going, you know what? 2 things. A, I got to get the wrap fixed now, which I thought, okay, well, that's decent. And she says, you know what? I'm also going to change the color.
Yeah, makes sense, though, doesn't it?
She said the bright pink Mustang is a little bit too identifiable.
Yeah.
So she says, I can be tracked.
Yeah.
Everyone knows where I am.
Yeah, she can't pretend she was somewhere she wasn't.
Yeah. So I said, but this was the irony, right? So I said, so what's the plan? She goes, well, either orange or...
Well, there are a few orange Mustangs around, especially that model, yeah.
Yeah, so orange, but again, she's going to wrap it, or grasshopper on the windshield green.
Love it. You've still not got that approved by the
RTA
RTA
yet. I know, I have not got that approved yet, but I know a guy who used to be at the RTA, and he's thinking he knows the guy
Wasta.
who knows a guy who knows 2 other guys. And if that happens... of course, who's calling me right now? Like
Andrew.
Yeah.
I want in. I want in.
How was he hearing the show? It's not on air yet.
No, but I mean, look, it's quite, because you sent me the notes yesterday or the day before.
Yeah.
That a few ideas for the show. Not that we ever really use them, but
we always
tend to. But I thought, oh man, I really need to up the game here and actually help you with that. So I was sort of looking through and. Some of the accounts I follow on Twitter, and that seems to be where I get my news from these days, normally at 3:30 in the morning when I'm feeding the baby a bottle. But there was a Top Gear, sorry, not Top Gear, I forget the name of it, but it was it's
one of those gear
James
shows.
May from Top Gear.
Okay.
And he'd just driven I forget which Tesla it was, but the one that had Ludicrous on it.
Right.
So the Ludicrous mode, the ridiculous full power.
Yeah.
And James May, and it's quite fitting that we're between Tesla and Ford Middle East, because he said that is the best muscle car ever to come out of America.
Really?
Tesla. Now that's going to hurt. That's going to hurt really? Detroit, right? Detroit is not happy about that. I suppose he's right. Like the thing with an electronic car motor, you can have 100% torque straight away.
There you go.
Straight off the line.
It's there, and just go crazy. Here you go.
Yeah. So
but I'm looking at the Teslas. I don't know. And it's funny because they remind me a little bit of a Mercedes-Benz, one of the new Benzes that's out there.
Yeah.
It does remind me a little bit of the Hyundai Sonata Coupe. I don't know.
The one that intrigues me the most is that Model X.
Yeah.
I just think it's unique, and they were brave with the design, and it does, when they're white with, you see them around town, the white, black wheels, blacked out windows, they do look pretty cool.
Yeah.
And everybody knows they're quick.
Yes.
And say what you want about them, it's clear I prefer the hydrogen route, and that's the way it is, but they're very, very special, aren't they? They
are.
They have an aura. There's something about a Tesla.
There is.
And they've really nailed it. And I think all the car companies that are going down the electric route really should have just let Tesla own it and just gone hydrogen.
Exactly. Played with that. Or still the hybrid area. There's still, and that's what Mazda's doing. Mazda's really going down this hybrid route, and that's what they're talking about doing with the Wankel engine, which I didn't realize has and this is the rotary engine. And I clueless on some of the implications of that, other reasons why they stopped using them. Part of it was the emissions coming out of those things are brutal.
Bring them down.
Just brutal. But has some great torque capability. So now they're talking about bringing back these rotary engines in these Mazdas, but they're also looking at them as a way to play around with the hybrid.
Yeah, because the power output of a Wankel is way, way.
So using them as generator motors. Yeah. I thought, okay, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But, no, I agree with you. I think let Tesla do its thing
and
then figure out your own route and build on what you've got or leapfrog over them. But let them have, they're working the electric. Yeah. Let them have it.
Yeah, I mean, look, and we mentioned it last week, so I think it was about, how cars, internal combustion cars, engine cars are going to become a luxury item.
Yeah.
And they almost kind of already have. I can't think of anyone in my circle of friends that has bought a brand new car within the last few years.
Well, why would you?
And exactly, yeah. And
although I want a Goliath when they come out.
you would. But no, I think so. I was reading again about the Golf R. So you in your notes, you had the 2020 Golf on it.
Did you see that picture of that thing? I was looking at that and going, yeah. So you just sort of did a head went to the side and the eyes went up, and I was like, man. And as they said, it's a little more sporty.
Yeah.
It's a little more. It's a little. I think the word they used was athletic.
Yeah, it's definitely got a bit of it's got a pronounced sort of curve on the bonnet, and it's almost,
it doesn't look like the 1985 Golfs that I remember.
But in the sort of, the old chimpanzee to human on the evolutionary of man sort of picture, that classic photograph, you put the Mark 1 to the Mark 8, you can see it. You can see the breed in it, and that's one of the good things that German manufacturers typically tend to get.
They really stick to that. They understand the family.
I think it's just because they just over design and engineer everything, right? So then they get it right the first time, and then it's like, well, why are we going to change that? 911's the case in point, right?
But that 2020 model that I was talking about just came out. They've just got pictures of it.
Yeah,
which
no camo on it as well.
No, and
I love that yellow green that they've been playing around with.
I buy that any day.
Yeah.
In the same note, the Audi TT is pretty much destined to die.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, I liked the TT, but never a real big fan. I don't know if it was misplaced. I think, get rid of that and just put all your money into the Scirocco.
Yeah, it had exactly. It had a bit of a. I mean, the UK we used to call them. It used to get termed a hairdresser's car. Typically, it was a sort of that kind of car. Somebody more caring about how they look in the car rather than. But the car was fantastic.
Yeah.
The problem they had was the first one was so good.
Yeah,
and then they tried to steer away from the sort of association with that kind of, and they made it a bit more muscular and a bit more edgy, straight lines and stuff on the second generation. It just didn't match the first one.
No.
And like you say, by that time,
it had a Beetle-y look to it at first when I first saw it.
The first
round
TT, Beetle and Golf at the time was the Golf 4. They were all the same chassis.
Well, there you go.
Everything was the same, even the engines. Everything was the same.
There you go.
Yeah. So the only difference was body.
Yeah.
So an interior fitting and finish. So they were very, very good. They just had too many other cars out at the same time when the second one came out. Like you say, the Scirocco was there by now. You put yourself in the Scirocco, I think I would, over a TT. Although the TTRS is absolutely mental quick.
Yeah.
That is a ridiculous, and it's such a great engine, that 5-cylinder engine.
More and more when I look at these cars, one of the big deciding factors for me is can you actually get in the back seat?
No. Well, no, are you asking me?
Yeah, no, but could so you'd be in the front seat, but could I get in the back seat? And I'm 5'11", and so for many vehicles I can. So like the Mini, I can get in the back seat of a 2-door Mini.
Yeah.
And it works.
Yeah.
And I'm going, okay, now that and it wasn't like it was I've been shoehorned in. I was sitting comfortably.
Yeah.
And buckled up, and I could have done an Abu Dhabi run on that.
Yeah.
Would I like to have had a little bit more room? Sure. Did I need it? No.
Yeah,
and so when I start looking at some of these, sportier cars, and I kind of go, great, but if I get one more person around, I'm doomed.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of times you've got a third person.
Yeah.
And then what do you do?
Yeah, exactly. It's
you need a second car.
Like we said before, the crossover, the SUV, whatever you want to say, the mid-size compact, whatever you want to call them, that's
killed it.
They're just the growth of people need a function from their cars now.
Yeah.
There's very few people that have a car to go and thrash around country lanes on a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen now. And if they have got that, it's a 65 Mustang, or it's something that they really love, or
it's a hobby car.
Exactly. Yeah. So they're not gonna go and buy a new car to do that.
You know what else I saw on Instagram, and it was for the Middle East. Is Chrysler has one of their minivans that they're starting to sell here again, and it's entry level, great price.
Yeah.
It's top of the range in North America. Like if people are driving these things, I thought, wow, they're actually trying to push the minivan, and which I looked at it and I just said it's an obvious thing to be driving, obvious here, because 99% of people never go off road at all, so they don't even need a 4-wheel drive.
And it's not like it was even when I came here, where you sometimes had no choice but to go over the side.
Right.
Everywhere's got a tarmac now.
Yeah. And so when you start talking about, hey, I'm going to do a trip to Abu Dhabi, or I'm going to go to Hatta, or I want to go, you know, these things can be driven on the roads that are around.
Those Kia Carnivals turn my head every time. I like them.
They're getting nicer looking at all the time, and it's this gen is beautiful.
Yeah.
And I love the idea. You can put 7 people in there, and you can have a game board.
Nice and sliding doors, so you ain't got to worry about how close you park to the next car.
Exactly.
Easy to get kids in and
Comfortable to drive. You know, the climate control works.
Yeah.
Entertainment systems work.
Yeah.
It's just, and you can stretch out your legs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I love that idea, and you can actually do some nice mods to them inside with tables and things like that if you're so inclined. I just think what a great idea. But they just, these minivans just get a bad rap. One side of them here is, they're hotel vehicles. But and the other side is you've got a whole generation of people that they were, you know, especially if they're from North America, no one wanted a minivan because they gave up their sporty car for the minivan with the family, and it was like,
that stigma attached to them.
The Chrysler Voyager.
Yeah. See, I would I'm not sure how Amy would feel about it, but I would definitely. In fact, I know how she'd feel about it. She'd say no, but I would definitely have a Kia Carnival. I would take it. Yeah. And we've always said we can't do it here because you have to register the transporters as commercial vehicles here. But I would definitely, when the time comes that we go back to the UK, I would take a transporter as a daily.
Well, that's what I'm thinking
drive.
too. I put it down to I spend a lot of time in parking lots, not being a stalker, but in between if I'm doing recordings and that, and I need a place where I can do some editing, and I sometimes am just sitting in my car, or I have to find some coffee shop somewhere. If I had a transporter with a little bit of a work area in it, I'm sold. Yeah, absolutely sold. I just love the idea of having a vehicle that you can travel. And this is going back again to VW. It's like the VW show. Yeah. But the VWs that you could easily be driving around, and the Vanagons that you could easily drive around as a daily drive, and then on the weekend you're going camping.
Yeah, exactly.
And I love that idea.
Yeah,
having your amenities.
I definitely think there's a big, and that's the way cars tend to be going now. Yeah, they do tend to need to have that second or third function. They need to be able to get you to and from work, enough space for the kids, enough space for the grocery shop. Yeah, and something to do at the weekend. And people want that now in one vehicle. That's why TT's gone.
And so it doesn't go fast enough. It's like, how fast do you really need to go? Is it if you any of these new vehicles that you buy, you put your foot to the metal, you're going to pass. Yeah,
there's no point in trying. Let's not pretend. I mean, if you want to make your transporter go fast, there's ways to do it. Yeah, but you've still got to drive that thing. Yeah, and you're never going to be as quick as a Tesla. You're going to pull up next to him on legs and get smoked at the lights anyway.
So I always like it when there's a car in front of the Tesla and I can peel off the lights in my Jeep. It's like, want another one. So roll down the window, loser.
Open the Tesla. He's got his windows open. And you can just chuck some hydrocarbons through the window as you go past. Yeah, that's one more for the petrol. Yeah. It's all good.
Yeah, no, it's all fun, but that's the thing, right? At the end of the day, you just want a comfortable vehicle that looks kind of nice, but is functional. Yeah. And I think that's the big thing. What do people hate about vehicles, especially as people start aging a little bit? And I think that's why the SUV market is the happy medium between the minivan, and it's not so low because you start looking at who's buying all these SUVs. The folks who are in their mid-40s, late, early 50s, who are having issues with their knees and with their hips.
Yeah. The thing is, something that needs to be considered in the change of what kind of vehicles people want these days. You've got to think that, 30, 40 years ago, being in your 50s was considered old, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You didn't have long left to work. You're going to be retired soon. You're going to think about stopping driving soon. Whereas now, in the UK, if you're 55, you got 20 more years before you can retire. Exactly. It's like you're not going to be thinking that you're old, and so that's probably one of the things that's caused the change and the shift in how many cars of a certain type are being bought and
absolutely.
And at the end of the day, there's so many cars on the road. It's going to happen to me in the next, in 15 years' time. I'm going to get to the point where I've got to buy a car for my daughter.
Yep.
Now, what am I going to put her in?
Yep.
Am I going to put her in a TT, even though I absolutely love it, and let her go and thrash around in that? Or am I going to think, you know what? I'd prefer her to be in an XC60 or a Tiguan or whatever the equivalent is at the time. And I think, as a parent, the you'd be much happier with the boys driving around in the Jeep than you would them driving around in a little compact.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I think that's just
and something that's got a few years on it, so that when they do have the mishaps, that you're not sort of left scratching your head going, oh, brand new car.
Excellent. Just run out of warranty.
Yeah.
That's not covered under warranty.
Yeah. Well, it's inevitably.
Yeah.
No, it's big challenges. Hey, we've got a great question about brakes. Person had their brakes changed about 3 weeks ago. They're squeaking like anything. They're wondering what you think is going on.
Well, I mean, 90% of brake issues are down to how they've been fitted. So whether that's technical error, so whether they fitted them physically wrong, or
so there's like some little clips.
Part.
I wonder if they put the clips on wrong.
Yeah,
and that's squeaking. And the way they're describing it, it's like a grinding metal sound, which that sounds like fitting.
That's not good. That's not been fitted properly, or they're the wrong pad.
Oh, that's possible too, isn't it? So we don't know where they got them fixed, but
the problem you've got is, again, brake noises come in different kinds of noises. The typical ones being a grinding sound, which normally depicts them having worn out, or there's the squeak. The problem with a squeak is you imagine it's like scratching your nails down a blackboard.
Yeah, it's irritating.
Yeah, but it's not actually it's not any kind of friction that's causing that directly. It's a resonance. It's the vibration that's causing the high-pitched noise. Now, if there's vibration there, it means something's loose. You'll always get it, especially the bigger your brakes get. So, like on a big sort of Cayenne turbo with a huge disc and pads, there will always be brand new, even out of the factory. There's a potential you're going to have, and Porsche put a great video on YouTube regarding this, but there will always be a potential for brake squeal because the brakes are so big and they get to a point where there's just it's almost like peak harmonic position where there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. If they make the brakes smaller to stop it, then the car's not as safe. If they make them bigger, then the wheels have to be bigger, the suspension has to be bigger, the car's not economical.
Which people don't realize. You start changing things, you start boosting things up, you start putting different tires on things, and suddenly you got to think, oh, hold on a second. I've tweaked my engine a little bit. Have you tweaked your brakes a little bit?
We've done the tires.
People never do that.
Yeah,
people never do that.
Yeah. There's a knock on with everything. Everything has a domino effect. So, but with the brake noise, if it's kind of a metallic grinding, it tells me that something's not fitted properly. Either the pad's slightly too big, and it's stuck in the sliding part of the caliper carrier, so it's just applied and then not come off. Yeah. Or it's sometimes brake pads are rotational. So they'll be directional, so you have to put them on the inside or the outside. You have to put them left or right. So it depends on the car.
Huh.
Yeah,
that's important to know.
You do.
So someone could have been working on this car and not maybe not been trained on that particular car and just said, I'm just going to pull these things out of the box, put them on, and didn't realize, that R means right side.
Exactly, yeah. And the other thing to remember is when you are working on brakes, you'll push the brake piston in the caliper, the part that applies the pressure, right back into the caliper to give yourself space to get the new pads in, which are obviously going to be 2 or 3 times thicker than the ones you're changing. Now, what you then have to do is pump the pedal to get the pad touching the brake. Otherwise, you're going to drive off the lift and you're not going to stop.
So, how many times have you seen people do that?
Happen, I've seen that happen.
It's almost we got to be a reminder. Hey, I don't want to be insulting to you, but just make sure you have.
Yeah, I've seen that happen. Yeah,
that's scary. That must be really scary for someone who's pulling that thing off a lift
because you panic. Right?
Yeah,
you're going to panic. So you always get in and pump the pedal. Same question. Every time someone's worked on brakes and they'll ask me to road test it for them. Have you pumped the pedal up? Have you pumped the brakes? And even if they say yes, I'll do it myself just to make sure. But at that point when there's a gap then between the pad and the disc, let's say they didn't pump the pedal.
Yeah.
Let's say the car was being worked on a jack, and then whilst it was having the wheels fitted back on, they got the car. The customer was waiting for it. They washed it quickly on the ground while it was there, and then they pumped the pedal up. Something could have gone in and gone between the disc and the pad. So there's always that thing that something could have flicked up in there, and it's more likely to happen with new brakes because there's more space.
Good idea when you're washing down your car to make sure that you really give the brakes and the pads
just try
nice
to be
rinse.
Careful with what you need to try and avoid is hot water. Avoid any hot water and too much detergent on the brakes.
That's a big problem when those guys are.
Because there's grease on there. They're a moving part. They don't move very much, but they have to move.
See, that worries me again. I'm at the garage and people are getting the hand wash done, and the guys have got that super soaker jet thing out, and they're firing as much detergent as they can, and they're soaking down front and back of the brakes.
Yeah, just try and avoid the pressurized hot water on the brakes. Yeah.
and people are just going, what?
Yeah, because then
You take away all the good stuff.
the grease is gone, and then the brakes can stay seize, and sometimes the grease is performing a function also to dampen the resonance.
Okay.
So if you blast that away, then you start to get squeals.
So this person, if it's been 3 weeks and they're just and they're starting to squeak, we don't know how long they've been squeaking. Maybe it's a metal sound. They need to get that checked ASAP.
Yeah, definitely take it back to where it was done and just explain. And it, like I say, something could have got in there because there's plenty of space and things can happen like that. But they need to really go over what they've done and make sure that it's all good.
New systems on cars with that piston for the brakes, are they constantly adjusting themselves these days so that they keep maximum tension or pressure?
Yeah, so we've got the KERS, the Kinetic Energy Recovery or whatever it is system that they had on Formula One.
Yeah.
I think Audi have put that on their hybrids, right?
Yeah, yet another thing to break down.
Yeah, so they're constantly.
I just want a plain car. Just give me a plain engine, no
cynical,
electronics.
So cynical.
I am. I'm paranoid of all.
It should get you in a room with Graham Ashmore, who taught me when I was apprentice. And my first day there, he said to me, he said two things to me that I'll never forget. Looked me dead in the eye and said, "Never lie to me, because I'll know." I was like, okay. And then he said, get out now, because you don't want to get into this trade. He's still there 53 years later. Not since he met me, but 53 years since he started himself. So, yeah. So if anyone knows, he knows. But you'd be good in the room with him. He was only ever happy once. Once he was happy, and that was when the owner brought his Type 2 van in, and we had to take the engine out and do all this. And that was the only ever time I've seen him happy. Other than that... Nah, I should definitely get him on. Get rid
of this voodoo science. Just give me a track.
This is useless. This is going to break it. Graham, that's just the brake servo. You need that. No.
Useless part.
Yeah, I've had them 40 years. No, it's rubbish. Back in my day when men were men. Yeah, all that stuff.
There we go.
Great.
See, I think he'd be my new best friend.
Oh.
We'd get along really well.
Oh man, talk about a cynic. But yeah. So we should get him on. We should definitely get him on. I'd love to do that, revisit some of the guys from the workshop and just the stories they could tell.
I think that'd be a great show. And I think we got to do one in the garage one day, just talking to the mechanics and interviewing them.
Yeah,
just having a chat about their training and just hear the stories of what the things that they did. And
so I can tell you, I've got a great story now. So one of my guys, Arnold, is a fantastic mechanic from Uganda.
Okay.
Really, really good guy. And I was just chatting with him, and he'd been educated in an English school, so English is pretty much his first language. And he's you wouldn't know that he was from Uganda if he didn't tell you.
Okay.
And we were talking one day, and I was asking him about how did you get to where you are, that kind of stuff. Always interested to figure out, how
it's
people
always
got
cool
here, 'cause it's always a good story, right?
You want to hear the path.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so
you can relate to it usually. There's
exactly.
some
We've all
element.
done it, right? So what he did was his father was working, and he got to the age where he needed to start working to help pay the bills in the house.
Yeah.
So he knew that down on the main road, and he said main road, quote unquote, because it was like not really a main road, as you see a main road here.
Yeah.
There were sort of drainage ditches either side of it, because when it rained, it was a big problem. So the roads were sort of like a convex shape, and the ditches on either side for the runoff. And what used to happen was cars would be driving down the road, and if they had a problem, there'd be guys in uniforms, coveralls or whatever it is, with a box of tools, sometimes a bucket of tools at the side of the road, and a couple of planks of wood. And they get the cars would pull off over the planks of wood over the ditch, and then they go in the ditch and work on the cars.
Oh no!
So he taught himself at the side of the road. He said he wanted some coveralls and he couldn't get any, and his dad managed to get him some from his work, and they were bright, clean, perfectly clean, sort of like a light blue colour. So he rolled around in them on the floor, so they looked dirty. Put some like grease and stuff all over his hands and his face, so he looked like he was experienced, so he could get passers-by to stop. And just got under there, and he used to take engines out, transmissions out, side of the road in a ditch. Now the Volkswagen apprenticeship program didn't have that module, so I think that was like
that's good. That's guerrilla mechanics.
Yeah,
and I mean guerrilla as in doing it basic with just
Oh yeah, that was big time
grit.
I mean,
wow.
Yeah, so that is learning. learning on the job at the side of the road. And like he said, we all think, Uganda, we all think wildlife, nice scenery, sun. But he's like, when it rains, man, it rains. Like he's sometimes he's saying that he's up to his knees in water, working on these cars while it's raining, gearbox on his back. No one to help him, because the guy that comes to help him might miss out on a customer himself, and it's
right. Yeah, I don't have time, dude. Yeah. You're on your own.
So,
pray you don't lose any bulls. Drop them in the ditch, and you're out there fishing through them.
Fair play to these guys.
I mean, picture it. That'd be a disaster. Yeah.
So there won't be much stories like that from me or any of my former colleagues back home. But to be honest, most of the stuff that went on in the workshop, we'd have to put a parental guidance warning on the podcast for that. But great stuff.
Oh man, Andrew's calling again, so I suspect he's not going to be joining us.
Devastated.
Yeah, I know he's trying to get in on this Mustang is what he's trying to do.
Just take the call, patch him through. We can't connect him in.
I know we should do that, but you never know what's going to come out of his mouth there.
No, there'll be Bluetooth on the Mustang.
That's it. Yeah, we'll call him from the Mustang.
We'll call him on the Mustang.
There we go.
There
we'll see if we can hook up the Bluetooth. There we go. Now we got it.
That should, you know what? Right, that should be maybe they do score cars on that, but they should score cars on how long it takes to connect your phone.
We're going to do that test. That's going to be one of our tests, because people have been saying to me. I told them we're going to be doing 3 guys in a car. And they're going, so they said, what are you doing? I said, well, basically kicking the tires and then taking it for that first test drive to see, because that's when you decide, right?
Yeah.
And everyone said, oh, aren't you going to drive it for a week? And as I said, honestly, when you go out and you're looking for a car, what do? You walk around, you read all the brochures, you take it out for a test drive, you make a decision.
Yeah.
You haven't driven it for a week. You've driven it for 2 kilometers.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Well, that's the problem. You drive it for a week. Well, what's the difference? When do you stop? Do you drive it for a month? Do you drive it for 6 months? Owning the Jeeps, the first week is way different to the whole 10, 15 years.
I still love it, though.
Exactly.
I still love it the same way. Although I got in today, I got to tell you, got the windows off, and somewhere some dust blew in, probably out front of the We Will Fix It shop.
Yeah.
It's like, no one was out there cleaning my car after. It's like, but inside and out. And I noticed when the dust blew in, I said, oh, there's been a cat around somewhere. I don't know where that cat was. But we were going to go and get. I neglected to tell this to the We Will Fix It boys, because they're big into pets and rescues.
Yes, that's right.
I wanted to go and get a rescue dog. I got rejected.
Sorry.
I got rejected.
Why?
I didn't even make it past the phone call, because we have a dog. We have an old dog. We wanted to get this old dog a companion, someone to hang out. And the lady on the phone wouldn't. She said, she said, tell me a little bit about yourself. So we just say, okay, we got this old dog. She goes, and we want to come and bring the dog and have a look around and find a companion for the dogs, a friend. And she said, okay, well, bring your maid with you. I'm going, we don't have a maid. Well, you're not coming to get a dog then.
What?
That's what I said. Because she said, you're going to have 2 dogs at home alone? What are you, nuts? And I'm going, what? It's going to be mayhem at your house.
Some sort of like...
You can't have one. I said, what?
Sorry?
That's what I said. Sorry?
I'm asking you to come and clean up.
That's what I said. I said, but they're going to hang out together. It's not your house. Nope. I said, what? He said, nope. I said, but this is rescue dogs, right? Yep. And you can't have one. I was going, what?
Seriously?
Yeah. I got rejected on the phone. Can't do it. Sorry.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
But the thing is, it was going to cost me 1,500 dirhams as well for the rescue dog. And she said, and I said, but I'm going to give you the 1,500 Ds. And she goes, yeah, but you're not taking the dog, so save your money.
Look, you appreciate the
I thought I dialed the wrong. I'm looking at I'm looking at the number on my phone. I'm going, I'm on the computer. Yeah. If I dialed the wrong number,
this is a lady who's got 1-digit different number, and she's sick and tired of phone calls. So now she just plays along with it.
That's what I thought. I really did think I've made a mistake here. No, rejected.
Oh. That's crazy.
But it's okay, because my dog probably is really happy, because we had a rescue dog before, and he got tired of having the rescue dog around, because it's like, this dog was getting all the attention. So he's kind of happy to get all the attention now. Yeah. But
still.
But speaking of pets, because we do take our dog for car rides, although we can't really hop into the car anymore. He did it the other day, did a header into the step up. Yeah, that's what I said. And he just looked at me and said, you didn't see that. But it's funny, because people say, you're taking your dog in the car. I said, absolutely. But we have a seatbelt harness, because we seatbelt in the dog. Because the last thing you want, because it's the same old thing. People put their dogs in the back and then they go driving around. It's like, hold on a second. You put on the brakes in a rush,
Yeah.
that dog's now going through the windshield. And
Yeah.
and in the process of going through the windshield, the 20 kgs is going to hit you in the back of the head.
Yeah.
You're goner too.
Yeah.
So we have a seatbelt harness that we put on the dog, and he loves it because he gets sucked into the seat, so he's held in place.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But people never think of that. I always just say, really, you're taking,
Yeah.
or they put the box in the back, and it's like, oh, have you tied the box down? You know, your car carrier.
Hey,
No.
that was another thing about the Teslas, right? They've done the dog mode, haven't they?
Yes.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That is quite cool.
I think
Leave your
they're-
dogs in the car.
Yeah. I think they're thinking.
I'm not putting a dog in my Tesla.
No, me neither.
Imagine the scratches on the touch screen and the
Oh,
dash.
Can you picture it?
Oh man.
But it's good thinking.
Yeah. No, it's a cool idea. The problem you've got is, does the passerby that's very dog friendly, shall we say, understand that the dogs in the Tesla are in dog mode, and they're not at risk? Because the next thing, you've got someone that's punching themselves through your window with the police and fire brigade out there to try and get the dogs out.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but no, it's a cool idea.
Hold that thought for just a second.
Now you said hold that thought, and I forgot what that thought was.
I don't remember what the thought was either. But we have another addition to our conversation because we had talked about the fact that we are going to be getting into this Mustang. And we're going to go have a walk around. But before we have that walk around, we've got an aficionado, and of course he also works at Ford, Andrew joining us to talk a little bit about this vehicle and why we're going to love it or not.
I don't think he's going to say we're not going to love it.
Well, it's an interesting because as I was driving up, and what color is this Ford that we're going to drive? This Mustang?
I believe it's the yellow one.
So that's a good sign because my yellow Jeep is parked out here. I did have to drive around the parking lot 4 times to find another Jeep to park beside, but that was okay. So the color's working for me. But I was driving up and I was going, I'm from Canada. I'm used to muscle cars. Yeah. I've grown up with the Camaros and the Trans Ams and the Mustangs, and I thought, am I excited? And I don't know. It's a funny thing because my kids said, "Dad, are you excited? You guys are going to go cruise around in the Mustang. Are you excited?" And I went, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. And so I thought this would be great to sort of have that conversation before we go down and have a walk around to talk about your excitement for the product, because it's not just that you're at Ford, but you love Mustangs.
That's it. I guess I'm a little biased in a sense.
We like
for
bias
Ford,
on this program.
Yeah, I've got to be honest up front. But I think working for Ford, being a brand manager for Mustang, it's kind of ingrained in the DNA, right? But at the same time,
have you been driving Mustangs for a while, or
for a long time. I got into Mustangs years ago, actually, through the game Gran Turismo.
Okay,
and that was
really
that was back in the UK when Mustangs hadn't hit European shores at the time, and that was always the sort of dream
Gran
car.
Turismo
feeder on in the background.
That's
wasn't
it, right? Yeah, exactly. Need for Speed and those kind of games. Yeah, you play that as a kid, and it was always that was it. It was the aspiration. Mustang's the car. When I got the money, that's what I want. But obviously, back at the time, it was American muscle. It was available in the US. You didn't have it anywhere else. But when 2015 came around, Mustang went global. So it was one of those things. I think in 2015 it was sold in about 140 countries worldwide. It was the first time one of the true American muscle cars was really went global. But I've been in Dubai now probably 11, 12 years, and it was the first car as soon as I got here.
First car you bought?
That was the first car I bought. Yeah.
Wow.
That was 2007. And I went all the way with that thing. Suspension upgrades, engine upgrades, interior, everything I could do.
See, this is the thing when I start thinking about cars that you're going to do mods to, and I know the muscle cars are big for the mods, but I never think about them as cars that you buy thinking about modifying. And the Mustang's a natural.
Yeah, that's it. And it's actually the most modified car in the world in terms of parts availability and the number of people who own them who modify them. In terms of just little things. It could be exterior mods, changing a grille, or a badge to black the badges out or something like that. But all the way through to full engine swaps and right the way through transmissions and even rear axles and diffs and all kinds of stuff. So it's really a good car to to learn and sort of build your experience doing.
From a mechanical side, you get some of these into Sandance and
everywhere.
Easy to work on. Easy to work on.
That's the good thing about most American cars. They're designed for the owner to be able to fix them because that's the American way.
Yeah,
that's how That's how it comes across to me as a Volkswagen tech, where, you know, you aren't going to fix your Volkswagen on the drive. But and the new, don't get me wrong, like 2007 when you came here, that Mustang you bought would have been a totally different animal to the one now.
Completely different.
I mean, it's weird because a friend of mine got in touch with me a couple of weeks ago. It was for not the greatest reason, but we were chatting away and we'd not spoken for years. And he sent me a photograph, and he's got a 2006 Roush, supercharged everything. And I was like, what are you doing with that? It's £1.40 for a litre of petrol, you fool. You know, what are you doing? And he's like, and I'd had a few too many drinks the other night and I did a burnout in the garage. I was like, he said, that's the most it's moved for about 6 months. But so he's not popular with his neighbours. But he's always loved them, and I suppose, and the Gran Turismo things are great. I never really thought about that, but they were good days. You got in your bedroom, PlayStation, Gran Turismo, some new metal on in the background, whatever it was. I think it was Feeder was the soundtrack, and I suppose that did introduce a lot of people to those things. I know my friend who we're talking about here, his dad loved his American stuff. He's a big American car fan, so he obviously got the bug from his dad. But it's always surprising when I hear it still today when people in the UK like them. But like you say, they're available. I've seen them for sale. I've seen the Ford garage in my local town when I've been back selling them. So do they do many of the V8s in the UK?
They do, actually. It's the more popular engine choice. Yeah.
I mean, we've said on the show, haven't we, James? If it's a Mustang, it has to be a V8. Nothing against the EcoBoost, but
and the EcoBoost is really popular, and
it is, yeah, and it's a great engine. You know, it's particularly when we look at places like the US where you know, Mustangs have been prolific for a long time. The 2.3 is it's a lighter block, right? So a lot of the guys would prefer to take that over a V8 if they're doing things like autocross and you know, tighter tracks, because the lighter weight gives it that better handling characteristic, right?
But how do you deal with the folks who are saying, but it's not a V8? And if I'm driving a muscle car, I know it's got power, and I mean it's a great engine, but there's that stigma in people's minds that I need a V8.
I don't know. I mean, that thought is thrown around a lot, but the reality is Mustang has always had engine choices, right? And that's kind of what makes it a Mustang. It's you know, the vehicle that everybody can tailor to their own sort of personality, right? You want a manual, you want an automatic, you want a fastback, you want a convertible, you want a V8, you want a smaller engine. You've got that choice.
So there's something for everyone.
Exactly, and that's what customers love about the Mustang, and I think we tend to see two types of enthusiasts. There's the sort of die-hard guys who will only take V8, manual, fastback, and that's it. It's not that, it's not a Mustang, right? And then you got the other crowd, which is, you know, I love Mustang, I love what it stands for, I love the prestige, I love the heritage, the history, all that, and I want to get into a Mustang for the cheapest price possible. And you know, a lot of the guys go for the smaller engine for a variety of reasons. Maybe it's fuel efficiency, maybe it's, you know, they just can't afford the top spec. But yeah, just as popular.
But I guess at the end of the day, when you're looking at that, it's still I mean, the Mustang is not just the engine; it's the complete package.
It's a Mustang.
Change out the engine, you're still driving a Mustang.
That's it, right?
I think I'll say from the after the 60s, I think this is the first generation of Mustang that I would take on looks alone. I think between the sort of the 66, 67 to now, I wouldn't have gone for them unless it was a V8. Choice. I don't mind unless you get in the V8 and the whole experience. I don't think they looked right, and that's just a personal preference, you know. But now with the EcoBoost, I would still take it, even though I think I wouldn't buy a Mustang if I had the money to buy one. I would buy a V8 because then you've got the whole how I think of them. But then for somebody like you who's ingrained, the brand is in you.
It's running through your blood.
You know more about it. And it'd be the same to somebody coming up to me and saying, "Oh, I wouldn't take a Golf unless it was a GTI, because what's the point?" And I'd you know, for a Volkswagen guy, then I'd be the same as you. So I get it. But this one on looks alone, I mean, a friend of mine's got an EcoBoost and it's silver, black wheels, black windows, and it looks cool. You know, it's a really nice looking car, and I really do think the look for the first time in a long time is really spot on.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting is the 2.3 of today, right? You know, puts out more horsepower than the 4.6 V8 from 2010.
How is that possible too? I mean, you start thinking, because of the quality of the engine, but people start forget that, it's not necessarily the engine size, it's what kind of output am I getting from it, and it's just, it doesn't compute for some folks.
That's it. And I think one of the the real way to sell a Mustang is to get in that car and drive it, right? Because you can speculate and sit there and look at it and talk about it all day, but the reality is, when it comes down to the EcoBoost particularly, because of the turbo, you've got all that torque, and there's always that sort of difference in understanding of whether it's horsepower or torque. It goes back to the old saying, horsepower gives you the number, but torque wins races, right? Because that's really what gives you that seat of the pant acceleration feel, right? And that turbo in the EcoBoost, especially paired with the new 10-speed auto transmission, that thing shifts. It's crazy fast. It really does give you a real nice driving feel.
And I think one of the other key features that we're gonna talk about in a minute as well, when we go down and have this walk around, is the fact that you can change the exhaust sound.
That's right. Yeah, the active valve. It's that's a really cool feature, actually. Yeah.
And I like the idea that it's actually built in, so I don't have to go and get an attachment and put something on and play. It's built in. The engineers were thinking. They're saying, some people want to have it a little bit louder, some people want it a little bit softer, and on the weekend I want it a little louder when I'm going down Jumeirah Beach Road. And then in the school run in the morning, I want it a little bit softer.
Yeah, exactly. And the nice thing is you can actually set a timer on that. It's like a neighbor-friendly mode almost, right? So you're leaving the house at 5:36 in the morning, and you don't want to wake up the neighbors, and you've got this loud exhaust, right? So you can turn it down, set the timer, and by the time you've turned the corner and gone down the driveway,
past your neighbor that you don't like.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. And then it opens up, and you've got that full sound again. But the nice thing about the Mustang program team in the States is they really listen to customers as well. So when they're designing the next generation of vehicles, the thought is always, well, what are customers looking at? What are the guys actually modifying the vehicles for? What are the purposes of the modifications? Is it just a modification for the gratification of that noise or whatever it is, or is there a purpose behind that? And can we look at how we modify the vehicle and design the vehicle going forward to to try and make customers' lives easier, and really engage with fans?
I think this one sits a lot better. I think a lot of the mods I've done on Mustangs were always suspension, because classic American muscle car, straight line but can't go around a track. I don't think that's a problem on this one from what I've read, and also to lower it just to make it look meaner.
Yeah.
And I think they sit a lot better, the new one, than they had in the past. They look better with low profile tyres. That was always the Mustang tended to have a bit more of a bigger profile on the tyre and fill the
back to the 60s, doesn't it? With those big,
but I think they sit better with the bigger wheels and the lower profile tyres. So it's going to be interesting to see where modding goes on this. I think you see them all. They'll colour code the lights, so you get the headlight mod, don't you? So they'll colour code the lights to the body. Not quite sure how legal that is. But
it's cool.
It does look
cool.
Yeah.
It
does. It's so I'd be interested to see, and I'm sure there are. Everyone knows the places to go. If we get mods, it tends to be from 2 or 3 suppliers in the US. There's not many more than that.
And the place in Satwa beside the mosque.
They
can do everything there.
I know a place where you can take.
See, Andrew smiling. He knows that place.
I know.
You keep driving when you go there.
I know a place where you can take a 2005 and come out with a 2015 body on it.
There we go.
Yeah.
So Andrew, if someone's listening and they're saying, okay, why do I want to go out and buy a new Mustang? How are you going to pitch it at them?
Well, it's a tough one. I think just the heritage. It's the world's best-selling sports car. It has been for a number of years now. It just says everything, right? Customers choose it because it looks good, it performs well, and it does everything really well, right? You've got great visibility in there. It's easy to drive. I can give the keys to mine to my mum, and she can go and get groceries and poodle around in it, and then I can get in it and put my foot down and have a blast, right? So I think it's global appeal. It really appeals to every type of person. But I think that the real, like I said before, the real way to sell a Mustang is to put your bum in that seat and really give it a shot. And as soon as you do that, it's that massive grin that you get on your face, just driving around and really sort of enjoying it. It's been in production for 55 years, which makes a massive difference as well.
So it's got heritage.
Yeah, of course it does. We've sold 10 million worldwide now, so that's
a lot of cars.
That's a lot of cars, yeah.
With that brand, I think it says a lot. You're really welcome to when you buy one, you're being welcomed into a club of sorts.
It's actually the most liked car on Facebook.
Really?
In terms of fans, yeah. And I think there's more Mustang clubs around the world than there are any other vehicle. Certainly here in the Middle East, there's a huge following. There's at least sort of 20 or 30 Mustang clubs here in the UAE alone.
I've been in JBR when a couple of them got together and just decided to block the road off. It's like 65 Mustangs. Yeah,
well, for the 45th anniversary, we had over, I think, 300 cars at one meet down at Meydan. It was incredible to see that. Yeah.
So, I mean, talking to you now, I appreciate how you feel about them, because as I say, I have the same on VW stuff. But how do you get people in the showroom to drive it? How do you get people in them? Because like you say, and I believe it, you get into a V8 Mustang and you've got the money in your pocket. I do think you probably would. Like I said, I think I would. But how do you get people in the car? How do you get them in the showroom? Because we're next to Tesla. I know people that have taken delivery of a Tesla and they ordered it 6 months ago on the website. They'd never even been in one. And they just ordered it. And that seems to be how places are going. The place I used to work at, they have like 2, whereas they used to have 12 new cars in the showroom, and the rest are iPads on the stand. And you spec it, and it's augmented reality, and you can do a VR headset thing in the room, which we used to use to keep coffee and water in. So, that's how it's changed. So, how do you get people in them?
Well, I think still here in the Middle East, the traditional way of advertising the vehicle is key. There's so many promotional offers. We as Ford put out a lot of advertising out there, all kinds of types of media, in partnership with our distributors as well. Each of those responsible for their own marketing as well. And that does us really well. And I think again, it's that appeal and that draw of the price point of the Mustang. You're getting a whole lot of car for a pretty relatively low price.
So you still get people through the door,
100%
for test drives.
Oh yeah, 100%. And there's a lot of work being done. I know a lot of partnership companies have recognised that. So you've got. You drive, and some of these cars buy fleets of Mustangs. You see them around.
Yeah,
the mall,
we saw that you drive Mustang.
I saw that the other day as well.
That's it, right? So I mean, if you wanted to download the app, get in the car, take it for a drive. You don't even need to go to the dealer to test drive the vehicle.
Yeah, because I think that was one of the things that first we noticed in the UK was to do a test drive. Obviously, the sales exec wants to take all the details possible. Name, contact number, email address. Street address in the UK as well, postcode, all of that stuff, and people start to get a bit, I don't really want to do that. And that was what we found. People weren't willing to give the details to then make the insurance valid for the test drive, and then so they started offering these weekends. So you book a test drive, if you do it in line with all your details, you can come and take it on the Thursday or the Friday and bring it back on the Sunday or the Monday. But still, it stopped, and people still didn't want to give the details. So, but there's still an appetite here. Then people are happy.
Oh yeah,
to do
100%. And we put a lot of effort into our digital space and all the online media and marketing that we do as well. So, streamlining that process for a customer to be able to get as much information as possible without going through the tedious process of filling in forms and leaving details. Because I mean, you start to lose people at that stage, right? As you said. That has been a real conscious effort of ours to make that process as easy as possible and keep the customer engaged all the way through the sales process to make sure that they do actually come in for the test drive. Because again, that's really when you've captured the customer, when they're in that car, you've got them.
There we go. Well, you know what? Why don't we go down and have a walk around this Mustang and give us the story. Tell us the story, because as you said, it's telling a good story that gets people to put their bum in that seat. And once they've done that, they're gonna pay for it.
That's it. Yeah.
All right, we're heading down to the garage. Andrew is here. I am here. Glenn is here, and we're gonna go check out this yellow Mustang.
You've been listening to the Car Clinic with Glenn Power from Sandance Tire, and Andrew Gregory joined us this week from Ford, Middle East. We're talking all about the Mustang and much, much more. If you want to get in touch with the program, drop us an email, podaholiks@gmail.com, or reach out across the socials. Podaholiks, we'd love to hear from you. Share the link, and we'll talk to you again really, really soon. So long for now.